Hey, Melissa Payton, this is your own personal video on how to make some quinoa. You are going to love it. Okay, so first you need 1 cup of quinoa, pour it in a pot, and put some water in it just to agitate it. And you just want to stir it around. Stir it around, keep it nice and moist, all of it covered up, just like you're covering up some rice. And just want to leave that in there for about 3 minutes. And just kind of move it around every once in a while. And while that's sitting, you can go ahead and chop up your vegetables or whatever else you'd like to put in it. So I love cooking quinoa with chicken broth, Campbell's. So pour it in your measuring cup because you use 1 cup of quinoa and then 2 cups of the liquid. So 1 cup or 1 can, fill it up. Hi, baby. And that way you have 2 cups of liquid. You can pour that directly in your pot. Okay, so next you want to you need to strain your quinoa. So get a sieve. Let me get this at like Dollarama, and pour your quinoa directly into your sieve. And get every little last kernel because it's delicious. And then you're going to take your chicken broth that you just poured out and put that in your pot. Take all the quinoa, put that in the pot. And then you can pause and have a sip of wine. And then when you're all set, stick it on the stove and you can boil it. So you bring it to a boil uncovered. And as soon as it starts to boil, you can put a lid on it and then let it simmer for like 10 minutes. And again, you can prepare your vegetables. So whatever you like to eat, whatever is crunchy works really well, meat works really well. So like sauteed chicken or mushrooms, but kind of stick to a theme. And I love Greek-based ideas. So cucumbers and feta and red onions, some celery, tomatoes. And then that way all your ingredients are ready for you as soon as your quinoa is done. And if you clean while you cook, there's less mess when you're done. And okay, so something else that is, I think, is just a staple for a salad dressing or any kind of oil-based dressing that you want to mix in with things just to give it a little bit of extra oomph. Take some olive oil, depends on how much you want, like a 1/4 cup. Extra virgin olive oil, that is. Just a couple drops, like a little bloop, of some red wine vinegar. Salt and pepper. Freshly ground pepper has so much more flavor than regular pepper. And then if I had some fresh oregano, that's what I'd be using because there's nothing better than fresh oregano, but I don't. So you just take a whisk it all together, and then the most important ingredient is feta. You can't buy like the low-fat stuff, you have to get like the real full-on fat stuff. So when you take your feta out of the container, you have it like chunks and whatever, right? And there's no real point in buying like pre-crumbled feta, because the whole point to me in feta is to crumble it up yourself, because the more you crumble it, the more the flavors come out. So take your feta, plop it inside your bowl, and just start squishing it with a fork. And for the feta, I would actually use like a lot. The more the better. So like half a container of like a 200 gram. Okay, so you have your olive oil mixture. That smells good. And your feta. And now that you have your base, tonight I'm going to use some tomatoes and celery. So I'll take the olive oil base, pour it into a bigger bowl, and that way you can just hold a lot more, because I'm going to put all the ingredients inside and let it commingle. That's a favorite word of mine. Okay, so tomatoes, chickpeas, lots and lots of cucumbers because they're crunchy and they're good, and some celery. So if you put everything in together and give it a quick little stir, and then that way your feta olive oil mixture mixes in with everything else, and the flavors are just to die for. Okay, so stir it all up and let it sit until your quinoa is done. And you can either eat your quinoa cold or you can eat it warm. But I usually like to let the quinoa sit for a little bit and just let it cool down, because when it's hot, it's like too mushy, but when it cools down, it's like nice and fluffy. Okay, and I'll be back. Bummer. Okay, so the quinoa has been sitting for, this quinoa has been sitting for a few minutes, and it's still kind of warm, but it's going to be yummy. And because it makes, like, 1 cup makes quite a bit, I usually do like half of it, and I'll put it in a bowl, and I'll save the other half for later. And then the mixture of your vegetables that you've done, well, choose, like, I don't know, it's a kind of like whatever your preference is. I kind of like it to be equal amounts, so like equal amounts veggies and equal amounts quinoa. And with quinoa, always remember that the quinoa retains the flavors of the items that you put into it, so especially feta, and that's why you cook with chicken broth, because it just makes it so much yummier. But and the longer you let it sit, so even like the next day, it's like 10 times better. And again, you can eat it warm like it is, and this way it has the feta has time to get in there and melt, just be a little bit better. And you can either eat it now or stick it in the fridge and then take it for lunch tomorrow. And that's it. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I did it for you.